Hi everybody, Bernardo here, and today I'd like to share just a few tips for those of you who are just getting into RC flying. Now, I got my first radio controlled plane just a couple months ago, and I learned a good many hard lessons about flying it, and so I'm hoping to share a few tips today that will make your journey just a bit easier than what mine was. First thing you want to do is choose the right plane. Now, there's obviously lots of choices out there. The particular one I chose was the Sky Ranger from Cox Models, and it's not a bad choice. There are plenty of other choices out there that might, some of which might be better ones than this, but this seems to work okay. There are two things that you want to look for in a plane. The first, it needs to be easy to fly, and this one's pretty good at that. Generally, the trainers have wings that are high on the body, and that makes so when you put the plane into a turn and you take your hands off the stick, as long as it's trimmed properly, it will slowly correct itself and fly straight. As opposed to a more advanced plane with lower wings, many times those are less stable, and you do need to have a more hands-on approach to flying them. This plane does pretty well at that. It is a small plane, and because of that, you do need to have a day that's very, very still, because it won't overcome very much wind at all. The other thing you want to look at when choosing your plane is you want one that's durable, and this is pretty good with that as well. The Sky Ranger uses flex foam, which is very durable. I've run into trees, light poles, the ground, just about anything you can imagine, fences, and nothing has ever broken on this plane with one exception, and that is if you strike it hard right at the nose, it will bend the motor shaft. Even though this prop is designed to pop off, that motor shaft will get bent if you nosedive really hard. For that reason, if I had it to do over again, I would find a model that has a push prop, a prop mounted up here that actually pushes the plane, and that way it would be out of harm's way and I wouldn't have any problems with bending the shaft. This is actually the third motor I have in this plane because of the fact that this shaft bends pretty easily. Cox makes something called the Sky Cruiser, which is similar in many ways to the Sky Ranger, pretty much the same controls, the same engine, and the difference is it has a push prop and it also glides a little better than what this one does. So I would suggest if you're choosing one of the Cox models, you might want to get the Sky Cruiser. If you're interested in one of those two models, I do have the links to those in a blog post that's associated with this video, and you can get to that post by clicking the first link you see in the description below. Second tip I have for you is to choose a suitable flying area. Obviously the one thing you're going to want to look for there is something big. I chose a softball field, and quite honestly I had trouble keeping it in the flying area. Once you're experienced, you won't have any trouble flying in an area that size, and maybe even a much smaller area, but when you first get started, the more space you have, the better. The other thing I would suggest is find an area with a grass surface. Now, every plane is different, but this particular one, the easiest way to land it when you're starting out is to not put the landing gear on. As you can see, I don't have the landing gear on now, and just bring it down on the grass. Hand launch it, bring it down on the soft grass, and you have very little chance of breaking anything. And that's what I would suggest, as long as you have a plane that's able to do that. If you need to land it on a hard surface, then obviously a big area is good. That way you have plenty of runway to land on. But even then, while you're flying it, it would be good if you have grass down below in case you crash. The next tip is to choose the right day. And for me, the mistake I made, I went out when there was just a slight breeze. I didn't think it would matter much. But with a plane this size, it does. You need a completely still day. In fact, I found that almost any day, once you get to, mid-afternoon, at least in my part of the world, there's just a little bit of a breeze. I found flying first thing in the morning or last thing at night actually worked pretty good. Tip number 4 is to understand how the controls work. One of the things that I didn't understand is how you turn the plane. I kind of thought it was like video games where you just hold the stick over, keep the stick over until the turn is complete, and then center it again. That's not the way it works. You nudge the stick over a couple times just to get that plane into a bank turn, and then you let the stick off and you let it complete the turn and then push the stick the other way to correct it again. Obviously, if you have a high wing plane such as this, once you put it into a turn, it will slowly correct itself, so sometimes you'll have to nudge it again to keep that turn going, and then once it's done, push it back the other way to level it up again. The fifth and final tip I have is label your plane. Put your name and number on it. Chances are sooner or later you're going to lose a plane, and if you have your name and number on, hopefully an honest person will find it and return it to you. That's all I have for today. If you have other suggestions for beginner RC pilots, put those in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.